Welcome to the show. Today's topic of discussion will be politics. I want you guys to know that I fought strongly, but I couldn't convince him otherwise. I don't know why why do we have to talk about politics?
Because it's relevant.
Yeah, but nobody cares.
Everybody cares.
Everybody should care.
Actually, I've been surprised at how many people are talking about politics, even though some of them are idiots, and we'll get to it later. But I'm surprised at how many people are actually following this election months out.
Well, maybe that's because every mainstream media has been covering it for, like a year and a half prior to it actually starting?
I feel like the mainstream media has always covered the election to this extent. I feel like most people have just been like, I don't care. And this year's different. This year's different for a variety of reasons. But before we get into that, I'm just going to go full disclosure on our own political beliefs. So, what are yours?
Oh,
Mr.
I go
Burns?
first. I am an independent. I am middle of the road. By that, I mean I'm not affiliated to either the Democratic or Republican Party. It does not mean that I'm in the middle of the road on individual topics. It means that I have certain liberal views and certain conservative views. I'm not really more of one than the other. I'm for the Second Amendment. I'm for the death penalty. I'm against taxing the wealthy just because they have that money, like overtly taxing them. I am for equal pay for women. I'm for the LGBT community. Things like that. What about you?
I'm a democratic socialist. I've been a democratic socialist my whole adult life. Before Bernie Sanders brought up democratic socialism, I was a democratic socialist. I mirror his views almost to a T, with the exception of the Second Amendment. Equal pay, equal rights for women, pro-choice, more social programs, free healthcare, free Medicare.
Don't say free; you're going to scare the conservatives.
Well, we're here to scare conservatives. No, we're here to have a discussion with conservatives, with everybody. I think the point. I feel like we need more discourse in society. So I definitely lean all the way to the left, and I am a registered Democrat.
Loser.
Thank you. All right, so we got mapped out for today's show. We're going to talk about politics. But our first subject is Donald Trump.
Yeah. Make America great again.
What is Donald Trump, and how did this happen? So I told you this before. I was sitting downstairs, and I'm watching Donald Trump announce his candidacy.
Right.
What seems like years ago, and he's talking. We get these trade deals with China. And China's destroying us on trade. They're better than us at everything. But I love China. I love China. They're excellent people, the Chinese. Oh, we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. But I love the Mexicans. Some of the Mexicans...
But they're rapists.
They're rapists. But we love the Mexicans. And I thought, this guy's a joke. 2 months this guy's done. Campaign over in 2 months. There's no way he gains traction. At that time, I'm looking at... I thought Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is going to be the sure nominee for the Republican Party.
Yeah, you'd think.
Maybe Rubio, but everyone's talking Jeb Bush. Here we are in May. Jeb Bush has been out forever. Donald Trump has over 900 delegates, and he is going to be the Republican nominee for president. How did this happen?
It's not an easy question exactly, but I guess the best place to start would be that. So we've had a Democratic president for the past 8 years. The GOP has been talking for those same 8 years about how they were going to come up with a front runner, somebody who was going to demolish Obama and demolish the next Democratic candidate and just take everything by storm. And then we hit people announcing for candidacy. And you realize that the GOP was kind of having an implosion on itself. Where you had, what was it? They had 17 official candidates for president to start. And the only one that anybody really paid attention to from the start through now has been Donald Trump.
So you're saying that no one but Trump has been relevant since day one?
Absolutely.
So you thought, so when he makes that campaign announcement, people are taking him seriously right away, you think? Because,
and for in my opinion, and with the conservatives that I've spoken to that support Trump, it's that when everybody came out day one, the GOP candidates, Fiorina, Carson, Rubio, Kasich even, they were given the same old same of what they were going to do and how they were going to fix everything. And it didn't work in 2008 when Romney went up. Or 2008 was, who was their candidate? McCain?
McCain in 2008, and we had Romney in 2012.
Romney in 2012, that's what I was trying to say. So Romney in 2012 came out and didn't pan out. You've got these guys that are almost emulating the same thing to start, at least when they're announcing their candidacy, and a lot of the conservatives who are part of the Republican Party are sick of hearing it. So when you have a guy like Donald Trump who comes out and he's like, I'm going to fix this, I'm not taking any money from the establishment has failed us, that was the immediate selling point to like 90% of his supporters. It was, the GOP has failed you, and I'm here to fix it, which is interesting because he's a liberal from New York.
Right.
But, he's got the right hype words, and that's how he came out and started it. So, he comes out, he announces his candidacy, and he's got these big things like, oh, Mexico this, China this, I'm going to build a huge, beautiful wall, it's going to be, 20 feet tall, it's going to be across the whole border, it's going to be wonderful. I'm not going to take any money from the establishment, I'm going to fund my own campaign, it's great. And the Republican Party sits there and goes, this guy's a joke, just like you did.
Right, absolutely.
We're going to crush him. But then they don't. And they don't really pay him no mind until he's already started to steamroll.
So how do you explain? Okay, so as a Democrat, I'm guilty of following the Republicans way too much this cycle. So the election starts out, and Jeb Bush kind of falls in the polls, and you can justify that, and you're sitting here thinking, okay, well, George W. Bush was very unsuccessful, one of the lowest approval ratings ever. So maybe people aren't ready for another Bush in office. So you can kind of see why Jeb Bush doesn't take off in the polls. And then Ben Carson comes along, and Ben Carson for a while is the front runner. Him and Donald Trump are like neck and neck. So you've got this guy, you've got Donald Trump, who's gonna build a wall, who's gonna blow everything up, who literally does not give a shit what other people think. He's not taking any money from the RNC. And then you got Ben Carson, who my own take is he's an idiot. Great surgeon. Keep doing the keep doing the surgeries. Keep saving lives. But he's not really talking to anyone yet. He's a front runner. He's a front runner ahead of Kasich, who we didn't really know about until the first debate.
Right.
I didn't. He's in front of Rubio. He's in front of Bush. We hear a little bit about Carly Fiorina. But you've got Carson and Trump. Why aren't any of the candidates like Rubio and Bush, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, why do you think Trump immediately is a front runner ahead of all these guys? I mean, Rand Paul had a huge libertarian following.
Yep.
So where are his guys?
So the problem with that is when you go up against a guy like Donald Trump, we live in PC America. That's just the way it is. And especially in politics, when you're announcing your candidacy for president, you have to talk a very specific type of way. You can't come out there and, go for the eyes, so to speak, against your candidates. You can point out their shortcomings and explain their faults and their policies and stuff like that. But when you're Donald Trump, you just make fun of everybody. And that's really what he did from the get-go. When Fiorina started challenging him, he was like, oh, she's a failure in business, she's a failure with this and failure with that. Ben Carson tried it, and he went after Carson, ripping their throats out, is the best way I can explain it, because he didn't have to play by the rules, because he's funding his own campaign. He can literally do and say whatever he wants. So again, when the supporters, they hear this, they're like, holy crap, the gloves are off already. He's not taking crap from anybody.
So why not Chris Christie? Why not the guy who is a politician who basically choke slams people on a daily basis?
That's fair.
Why not Chris Christie, who's endorsed Donald Trump? But
because Chris Christie, like the others, they're still directly affiliated to the party. They're still for the establishment. He's the only one in the group who's against the establishment, who claims to be against the establishment. As far as the persona that he puts on his interviews and his speeches and his debates is all, the establishment has failed you, I'm going to fix it. So when he amps those people up who feel betrayed by the GOP, no other candidate who's directly affiliated with the GOP, who are like these household names like Christie and Cruz, they're not going to be able to compete with that.
Do you think, and I wondered this recently, do you think if Mitt Romney had declared as a candidate that we'd see a different election?
Yes, I absolutely think it would be neck and neck right now between Trump and Romney. I think he would be getting a second backing from his people. It would be close. I still think Trump would be ahead.
You think Trump would beat Romney?
I still think Trump would be ahead. Absolutely.
All right, that's interesting. So given everything that's gone on, given all the candidates that have dropped out on the Republican side, and everything that's happened, is Donald Trump good for America?
Here's why I can't answer that question. The man he hired that just went down and talked to the delegate committee.
Oh, I forgot his name. I know who you're talking about.
Right. So he hires this gentleman to go down and talk to the delegate committee in Florida, and who basically says in so many words, look, the Donald Trump you're seeing right now giving these speeches, doing these debates, it's just a character. Once he gets the nomination, he'll be a totally different candidate in the general election, in the race for the general election. That's scary. It's scary for two reasons. One, that Trump that runs for the general election, different from this one, could be worse. Or he could actually come out and push out some good ideas. Let's be honest with ourselves. How many of Trump's policies are we familiar with? Like what he would do. He's going
to build a wall.
Well, he hasn't really spoken on anything outside of the wall. And even there, he's kind of stopped talking about that so much. Let's be honest, the wall's not possible for a million reasons, but that's besides the point.
So just to clarify, the official we're talking about, Trump hiring, is Paul Manafort, who is his convention manager.
Yes.
So he's in charge of gathering delegates, essentially. Trump is an entertainer. So
right now.
So Trump comes out. He's going to build a wall. He's going to ban Muslims from coming into the country. He's going to take care of America. He's going to carpet bomb ISIS, which Ted Cruz also said.
Right. We're going to be great at winning.
We're going to be great at winning.
Yep. We're going to be so great. We're going to be bored of it.
We're going to be bored of it.
But in there, is there any substance to anything he says?
Well, okay, so there's no substance, but let's assume Donald Trump has been putting on a show.
Right.
Let's assume. And he comes out and he decides when he's the general candidate, he's going to be... There's two ways it could go, right? You can go more extreme or more presidential.
Right.
Are either one of those things worse than what he's doing now?
Yeah, if he goes more extreme, then it's worse than what he's doing now. Because we don't know if Donald Trump could be good for the country. We don't. We don't know what his policies are. We know what this current Trump wants to do, but we don't know what he actually would do. As far as things like foreign policy goes, he has no experience whatsoever. He would fail completely. So unless his cabinet is stacked and his staff is stacked and they help him through that, he's going to suffer there. Economically, could he be great for this country? Yeah, he has several failed business ventures. What businessman doesn't? He's still worth tons of money. Still has massive successful businesses going on right now. So economically, could he bring something to the table? Yeah, probably.
Does it bother you at all that this is not a guy who built himself from the ground up, that he's running with inherited money? So even though he's self-funded, it's not necessarily money that he's earned individually. He is a one-percenter. Right, he is a one-percenter.
He did. You know, it's not like he started at a lemonade stand and worked his way up to the Trump Tower.
Right.
You know, he got his money from his father. That's not anything nobody can Google. But how long can you use that argument? How long has he been running the show? Years now.
Right.
So obviously he's good at what he does. Otherwise he would have. Now he's been bankrupt a couple of times.
Oh, his companies. He hasn't.
He specifically has never lost his net worth. I don't know, man. I don't know. He inherited the money, yes, but he's also maintained his status and his business's status from that point on.
What confuses me is Donald Trump is one-percenter. Donald Trump is one of those people who has millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
So what is his appeal to the poor and middle-class worker who he really can't even relate with? He was never poor.
Right.
He was never middle class.
Correct.
He's always had money. He was born with the golden spoon. Why do people who are poor and middle class think that Donald Trump is going to help them?
I think they're lost in the illusion because he comes out with this anti-establishment persona. I think it gives them this warped idea that when he becomes president, he's going to find a way to fix it for us. I personally don't think he gives a damn about anybody who's not in the 1%. I really don't. I don't think he's going to do anything to fix the middle class. I don't think he's going to do anything to fix the lower class because they're beneath him. They're not his problem. Just like they're not his problem now working civilian sector in his businesses. But they have this idea, they're like, oh, he's against the establishment, that means that he's for us, so you've got these people who are in either poor income brackets or middle income brackets who are like, he's going to fix it, he's going to make everything great again, he's going to bring us jobs, and he's going to do this. But even that's kind of a false statement, you know? He keeps saying, I'm going to bring jobs back to this country, I'm going to make it so great, it's going to be wonderful, but how many of his companies are outsourced overseas?
He has projects outside the U.S.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's funny because, like, this is the same guy who's saying he's going to make jobs in America and bring income to America and all of this, but his own tie line is made in Mexico.
Right.
Who's that helping?
Mexico.
Right, exactly.
Not American workers.
Right.
But why does that get lost on your average voter?
I couldn't tell you. I'm
is
concerned. I hope this isn't the actual case, but I'm concerned that most Americans don't have the due diligence to do the research themselves. Like you and I, we can go on Facebook as people who follow politics closely, and we can post all of these things and statistics and make discussions within our network of friends, but we're still only going to reach our network of friends. You know?
Right.
Some random guy who's supporting Trump who doesn't make a whole lot of money, lives in a trailer maybe, let's say, for example, not to generalize his supporting base. But are they going to go out and do the research, or are they just going to hear the words, I'm going to make America great again, I'm going to make us win, I'm going to build a wall, and you're going to love it?
But are they not hearing Ted Cruz? Are they not hearing Ted Cruz come out and say, Donald Trump is a liar, Donald Trump is a flip-flopper, or is that too much of a politician move for Ted Cruz that it just bounces off of Trump?
Or is it that because Ted Cruz is such a politician, whatever he has to say, people could not tune in when it's Ted Cruz.
But Ted Cruz has always been a non-establishment politician.
I agree.
This is the guy who had green eggs and ham on the floor of the Senate to filibuster. This is a guy that most people hate, and he was part of the Tea Party movement.
Right.
How is he suddenly too political? How is he too establishment?
Because the GOP doesn't want Trump to win the nomination so badly that they're pushing behind him. So he gets this backing from people where he's, fought against in the past, but right now in the moment, it looks like your anti-establishment candidate is Trump, and the establishment candidate Cruz, and the rest of the GOP is doing whatever they can to keep him from getting the nomination. So
there's an article here on Slate.com, written article by Jamel Bowie. I hope I said his last name correctly. But he says, no, what makes Donald Trump something new in American political life is that he's all these things at once. A racist, nativist demagogue with few ties to government, no experience in public office, no service in the armed forces, and little to no knowledge of anything involving governance, from policy to basic questions like, what is the Supreme Court and what does it do? If you conjured all the ignorance and arrogance in America and gave it a human form, you would have Donald Trump, give or take a spray tan. Do you agree with that sentiment? Is Donald Trump just everything that's negative about the U.S. with no experience, no leadership skill, no form? Is he just raw emotion, and people are tapping into that regardless of what kind of president he would be?
For the most part. I don't agree with the lack of leadership. The man runs his own businesses. Tons of businesses. He obviously has leadership skills. You can't refute that. So, does he have leadership skills as a president?
So you feel like he's motivating his employees?
Is he?
Well, I don't
know. What are the
kind of leader is Donald
of his
Trump?
Employees? I mean, he's got people supporting him from his companies.
But he also has employees that have come out against him.
True. I mean, even his last campaign manager, who was never really fired,
Corey Lewandowski,
was like, he didn't even want to be president, and I can't support him. But that's besides the point. Is he pushed by raw emotion? Yeah, absolutely. He's a hype guy. He's tapping into what every American is angry about and using that to get the vote. Is he the most popular candidate out there right now? yes, he's infectious. Even if you hate him, you have to talk about him because you want to, whether you're for him or against him.
And here we are.
And here we are. Is he the best candidate out there? Absolutely not by a mile. Could he be a better candidate? We'll have to wait and see if he gets the nomination and becomes this new general election Donald Trump.
Donald Trump makes me miss Mitt Romney.
That's a very strong statement, but I personally would support that. As bad as I found Mitt Romney to be for presidency,
I'd rather have binders full of women than a wall. I guess. As bad as that sounds.
But let's be clear about that. I mean, I'm not against the idea that the wall has. Do we need to police our southern border more? Yes. There needs to be something in place. There have been attempts at walls before. They've failed. Right. They've even caused problems for American citizens. You know, like, hey, we're the U.S. government. We want to build a border
Pink
wall
Floyd's
on this
The
land.
Wall was pretty successful.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was very successful. We're going to build a wall right here in the middle of your land, and this part of your land is going to become Mexico. And the owners of that land go, well, I mean, can we get a stipend, or can we say no? And the government's like, no, we're the government. We're going to do it anyway. Right. And even those walls failed. You know, they dig under them. They climb over them. A wall's not going to fix it, let alone the fact that the cost for this wall in building alone, let alone upkeep and maintenance, is insurmountable. It costs more for this wall than it does for the debt that the U.S. currently has.
It's a very expensive wall.
Right. And it wouldn't work.
Right, and it's not worth spending all that money on just to keep people out who aren't going to cost us that much. They're not going to cost us that much money in the long run. It won't cost that much to keep those immigrants out.
As opposed to having the wall. Yes, I agree. Right. But, you know, there does need to be a better system as far as policing illegal immigration. I'm all for anybody who wants to come to America and become an American citizen. If you're a foreigner and you join the military, you should be granted citizenship after you honorably serve your minimum 4 years. Because you came and you served for a country that wasn't even yours. I'm for that. I'm not for illegal immigration because you're breaking our system and you're making it harder for our Americans because by cheating the system. It's like we were discussing the other night. I could renounce my citizenship from the United States, move to Mexico, then come back illegally and benefit from all of these programs as an illegal immigrant that kind of put me in a better position than being an American citizen in certain points. And that's wrong. That needs to be fixed. Is it Obama's fault? No. He supported more immigrants in his term than any president has before him. So right. People, you know, just because I hate that. I hate when people are like, well, Obama's done nothing and he wants to help. No, he's deported a lot of illegal immigrants. So don't get that twisted. But yeah, I mean, a wall's not going to fix that.
If Donald Trump becomes more presidential and then comes out with maybe even more liberal, so what if the Republican nominee for president comes out and says, I am pro-choice?
He's not going to win the general election.
So he's more presidential, but he taps into that independent vote. So you've got Republicans who are... Do Republicans vote for Hillary?
Republicans have already said that they were going to vote for Hillary.
But if Trump comes back toward the center with some liberal views, does Hillary lose votes? Do Republicans vote for Hillary because Trump is no longer supporting their party? Or does Trump pick up all the independents who are kind of undecided and don't like Hillary Clinton?
I think the independents are going to play a more important role in this general election than they have in any election prior. Because you've got what you're saying here, where if Trump comes back to the middle a little bit, some of the independents not sold on Hillary, who's, you know, let's be honest, more than likely is going to get the general, the nod for the nomination, could go to him if he comes down off of this extreme cloud that he's on and talks about policies that independents can get behind. Because they're anti-establishment, and they're also looking for somebody who's going to be kind of in the middle.
Is the notion of a President Trump scary? And what I mean by that, semi-seriously, is are we actually going to die? If Donald Trump is the president, I feel like there is an increased probability that we're going to die. So right now we've got Russian planes, Russian jets buzzing U.S. naval ships.
Yep.
And we're just taking it because we're taking the high ground, you know.
Well, because they want us to shoot.
They want us to shoot. Under President Trump, I think we're shooting.
Oh yeah, we would.
I think we're
shooting.
In a heartbeat. And we're talking World War III. We're talking World War III in totally preventable situations are we going to die under President Trump? Is this not the vein of dialogue that people should be having? I think we might die. I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm not quite threatening to move to Canada, but if we take a guy who's a little more volatile, he seems volatile. If a country attacks us and shrinks our manhood, I think Trump's going to go for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've seen how he reacted about the comment about his hands. Right, if anybody makes that about America while he's president,
what
it's
if
on.
Putin just says you have a small penis?
Oh, that's it.
Straight up.
Trump will walk over the line himself.
No hands, no nothing. Just, hey, dude, you got a small dick.
We're launching nukes.
People are going to die.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think if there is a Trump presidency, you are going to see... Now, let's be clear. We have been in the longest-running war under President Obama than we ever have as a country, period.
Right, but that's a war that was started under George W. Bush and may have even I mean, if you want to argue, pre-exist from Bush 1 and Bill Clinton.
You know, so that said, we have been in one singular war. We've been localized to the Middle East, for the most part. Under a Trump presidency, we're going to war with China. We're going to war with Russia.
Are we going to war with Mexico?
We're going to war with everybody. Everybody who steps to us wrong. I mean, in an interview, he stated that he's not against other countries having nuclear weapons.
Having nuclear weapons,
and that's scary. We as America have always been kind of like the front runner of like, hey, we need to lead this nuclear policy because we're the only country to ever launch a nuke. We know, or an atomic bomb, but still, you know, we know what the repercussions are. The world saw the repercussions. I don't think Trump has that switch in his brain between, like, morality and just getting even. And that's scary. So, yeah, if Putin comes along and says something or threatens Trump directly or says something about America that he doesn't like, is he more prone to say, all right, we're going to war? Yeah, absolutely. Would we have several more wars than the one we have right now? Yes, I absolutely believe that. Would we die? Hell yeah. A lot of American lives would be lost. And I mean, you're talking about Russia and China. There's a reason we haven't gone to war with them in as long as it's been.
Well, it's World War. We're talking about mass human devastation.
That is World War III, and many countries, mostly us and our 25 allies, have been doing everything we can to prevent that. Put Trump behind the wheel, and you're kind of throwing everything we've done out the window.
With a Republican Congress to back him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, now I think Ted Cruz is actually a worse person. I'd rather have Trump. I hate saying it. I'd rather have Trump. But when I think about President Ted Cruz, I don't think World War III.
No. There would be a lot of terrible things that would happen. You know, under President Cruz, hypothetically, you're going to see a repeal in the Affordable Care Act.
I think with any Republican.
Which with any Republican candidate you're going to get. But the problem is, where's the backup plan? You know, they keep talking about we're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to get rid of Obamacare. It's terrible. Even though all it is exactly what the Republicans proposed, just under a Democratic's push, and that in itself is ridiculous. But, you know, they're going to repeal that. But what is Cruz's fix? You're just going to take health care away from all of these Americans that have it.
The Republican Party does not have a fix.
Right. That's what I'm so like on Cruz's side, that's the terrible thing that's going to happen. But are we going to go to World War III under Cruz? No. Are we going to go to World War III under Bernie? No. Hillary? No. Maybe. Probably not.
All right. So we bring up Bernie, we bring up Hillary, and I think we're going to transition over here. It's entertaining as the Republican side of things have been. With the Democrats, we have Bernie Sanders, and so we had 4 presidential nominees from the Democratic side, but really only 2 that surfaced. And we've got this phenomenon of Bernie Sanders, who's really the Obama of 2016. He's really, you know, Hillary was going to get the nomination. Here comes this relatively unknown to the public figure, toting a campaign of hope and change and equality. He is the Obama of 2016. Is his platform realistic?
Yes. No. let me clarify that. Yes, it's realistic. No, it's not realistic in America. we still have too much of the older generation. So the problem here is Bernie Sanders is a self-described, quote, democratic socialist. The only word people are taking away from that, especially on the right side of the house, is socialist. And socialism is the devil. It's the enemy of capitalism. It's the worst thing that can happen to America. Now, we have too many Americans that are from the older generations, especially on the conservative side, though even on the less progressive liberal side, who are hearing that word socialism and going, no, absolutely not, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. But would it work? Absolutely. I've been to democratic socialist countries. I've seen it work in action myself. I spent 3 years in Germany. It was amazing. It was incredible just to see how well everything did economically. You're talking about a country that, after years of refusing to, finally joined the EU with its economic standpoint because Greece was in so much debt, and it barely put a dent in Germany's euro, like in their worth.
In their GDP.
Yeah, in their GDP, and it's insane because how do they make that work? Democratic socialism. They've been doing it for years. It's successful. It's, I don't want to say perfect,
right,
but it's almost perfect. You know, there are so many good things that outweigh the little bad things that you're like, all right, cool, let's do it. Would it work in America? Hell yeah, it would work in America. But you need people to get behind it. And unfortunately, millennials are too dumb to really understand what they're voting for.
You're just going to blanket statement on the millennials?
Yes,
okay.
I am. And because I'm going to blanket statement the older generation too, the baby boomers, who are now the older generation, are too dumb to understand the difference between socialism and democratic socialism.
Do you think it's a generational? Do you really feel like millennials understand what democratic socialism is?
Hell no.
I don't feel like anybody really understands what democratic socialism is. I feel like they hear the term socialism and it's like the Red Scare.
Well, unless you're the millennials, because all they're hearing is free college, which it's not free college, but or free healthcare, and they say, well, I want that, it's free, I want it handed to me on a silver platter. That's all they're hearing. That's what they're supporting. They're not supporting democratic socialism. They're supporting the things that they want.
I hate to bring up a meme of all things, but there's been a meme on Facebook, and it's Bernie, and it says, I'm not giving anything away for free. I just want your tax money to be used responsibly. Who knows where our tax money is actually going? We know it's not going to infrastructure. We know it's not going to education. We know it's not going to secondary education. Where is the tax money going? So, as far as me, I feel like his platform is realistic. Maybe not today. And I wrote something on Facebook today basically saying democracy in America is set up for slow change. It's not. So Bernie Sanders is a guy who is, I'm an idealist. Here's my platform. This is what I want. All or nothing. We're gonna go for broke with these ideas.
Right.
Here's the goal. Let's go hit the goal. And in a country with so many independents, they're like, not so fast. That's a little scary. I don't know about free education. I don't know about these social programs. That sounds like a handout to me. But they're not quite willing to take a risk there because there's no incentive. They're good where they are.
Yeah.
Essentially because they're in the middle.
Right.
So Hillary Clinton is your compromise to that change. Okay, maybe I don't want $15 minimum wage, but what about 12? Maybe I don't want entirely free education, but we should expand government-funded programs. And
it's a good stepping stone.
So I think his ideas are more than realistic.
Absolutely.
I think they could be implemented tomorrow if the general public was on board. I don't think the millennials are stupid or that the older generation is out of touch. I think we're built in a society where most people are moderate, and because of that, change is going to come slowly.
I just think it's because we have capitalism thrown down our throats every day. You know, anything that's not capitalism is the devil.
Isn't the world capitalistic at this point, though? Isn't the entire... Are we talking about global capitalism at this point?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but then you've got those little bits of democratic socialism. Now, again, I'm an independent. I believe in democratic socialism. Could I be swayed over to being a democratic socialist? Yeah, probably. But I spent less than a decade in Germany. So, what are the long-term effects? I don't know. I would have to research that. But there's a quote that I really like that says that socialism without capitalism is communism, but capitalism without socialism is fascism.
capitalism without socialism is communism. I mean, to an extent, in a communist country, you're talking about the government literally controlling every decision for you. And I feel like it's really important to draw the distinction. Socialism, pure socialism, just says, hey, everyone's working on an even playing field. You still have free choice and free will.
Right.
You're just making as much money as your neighbor, essentially. Do what you want with that money, but your social standing is the same. Whereas communism is like, you work, you give the government all of your money, we're going to put you in a house.
Yeah, and we're going to subsidize everything for you. But
yeah,
everybody's subsidized the same.
Right, and if you're unable to see the drastic differences in those two systems, capitalism doesn't function in communism, because the only entity standing to make money is the government. Whereas in socialism, you can still have capitalism. You're still talking about free market to an extent. You're still talking about free will to an extent. What's bothered me a lot over the last several elections is that socialism and communism are talked about like they're interchangeable, and they're not.
Right.
Which brings me to a lack of education. I think we're just poorly educated in America, to be honest with you.
Are we poorly educated, or do people not care enough to do the research themselves?
I'm of the belief that you can be educated to care. It's a conditioning.
You can be conditioned to care about things.
Conditioned to care.
People get conditioned to care about, if I take an acting class in high school as an elective, and I'm conditioned within that class to enjoy acting, I will probably continue to pursue that path.
Correct.
Same with football or math or anything. But we're talking about the school systems here.
And family, the family structure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, but it goes from education. If I, as a student in my youth, am taught about politics and money and like all of these things that aren't taught in public school systems, and then I grow up, I get married, I have kids, and I teach my kids what I learned while they're also learning it in school, that's a spreading of knowledge that's not otherwise done. Like I only know so much about politics from what I research myself. There's nothing in the public school systems that says you need to understand politics. You need to understand what these branches of politics represent, what they are, what they do. That doesn't exist. And that's a problem, because for people not like me, who don't want to do the research, they're just going to hear what their friends say and go, okay, well, if my friends think that, then it must be true. Socialism is bad.
Or it's a fact.
And that's a problem that needs to be fixed, but that goes back to education and how we fix that.
Has Bernie... I think we both agree that Bernie's probably, at this point, not going to be the presidential nominee. I think it'll go to the convention. I don't see a situation in which any of the delegates in the DNC suddenly decide, you know what, Hillary's not our best candidate, and it's going to be Bernie. Bernie is going to be our candidate.
Which they should, but they won't.
But they won't. Nor do they have reason to. Unless Hillary gets indicted on a charge or something, I think that's the only real path for Bernie.
Let me ask you this. True or false? If a state in a closed primary votes for Bernie Sanders and he wins that state...
In a closed primary.
In a closed or open primary, doesn't matter. And the state has superdelegates assigned to it, do those superdelegates have a right to still push for Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders?
So I think so the reason the superdelegates are there is that in the event that a race is essentially too close to call, the delegates act within the best interest of the party.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. Primaries are not about the country, unfortunately.
That's why most independents can't vote in most primaries.
Primaries are about the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. These are elections put on by the party, not by the government, to select their best candidate. So, while I think in a perfect world it would be nice to see delegates from a state that a candidate has won side with that particular candidate, the system is there as a fail-safe. So, let's say Bernie and Hillary go into the convention tied. Even as a diehard Bernie supporter, I think Hillary is your better general election candidate. She's going to appeal to a larger number of voters. And when I say voters, I mean people within the demographic that usually actually go vote. Bernie Sanders appeals to a younger crowd. Is the younger crowd going to show up on the general election? Maybe.
You hope.
Maybe, but they're not even really turning out for Bernie in the primary.
Right.
So you've got all this support, you've got all these people going to rallies, you've got all this talk about feel the burn and everything, and then he's not winning closed primaries.
Right.
So if I'm a DNC delegate, I'm thinking if I really want to win the general election, I think I'm going to vote for Hillary at the convention.
But that's because they're only looking at the Democratic side of things. If you look at the polls lately for independents in the country being polled, they're saying Bernie. If he doesn't get the nomination, a lot of independents and Democrats are saying we're going to write him in. Now, that's not going to do anything but only help Trump make presidency once he becomes the general.
Right.
Now, I just want to point that out there. Look, let's be fair here. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. If Hillary Clinton gets the nod for Democratic to be the Democratic frontrunner for presidency, and the other option is Donald Trump, as much as it pains me to say it because I loathe Hillary Clinton and everything she stands for, you got to go out and support the Democratic candidate if you are a Democrat. If you're independent, do what you do. You know, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, and I think Bernie needs to come out and say that as well when it gets to a point where he's not the nominee anymore.
And I don't think that Bernie needs to throw in the towel at all. I agree. I think it should go to the convention.
Right.
The next thing I have here is, has Bernie been effective in changing the message of the Democratic Party? And I think he has. I think he's woken up a lot of people. Trump is self-funded.
Right.
Bernie Sanders is non-corporate funded, nor is he a 1% candidate.
Right.
So while Trump is still playing with dirty money, which is his own, and I'm going to call it dirty money.
That's fair.
Bernie Sanders is operating off a grassroots movement of people who are donating an average of $27 to his campaign. It's literally the cleanest campaign out there.
Yeah.
It's a campaign that people didn't think you could run anymore. Mm-hmm. People can't...
You're talking about a campaign that the best smear they could find on the guy was a fiction article that he wrote 30-something years ago.
Right. So he's literally challenged. Trump is talking theoretically about changing the way Washington works.
Right.
Bernie Sanders has already changed the way we're running campaigns. He's running a campaign that people thought couldn't be run anymore. You can't just run off grassroots money. You can't just run off small donations. You can't run without a super PAC since the Citizens United decision. And here he is. He's got enough money to go all the way to the convention. He's out-earned Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
I believe in every quarter. Now I'll have to check that. And he's talking about getting corporate money out of politics. He's backing up his word with his actions successfully. This isn't some coffee party candidate running on the Democratic side who's like, he's not like a Rand Paul. He doesn't have like this cult following. This is a guy who has literally changed the way politics is working right now. So you'd like to believe he could do it if he's the general election candidate. You'd like to believe that he can change things if he becomes the president just because he backs up his words with actions. Do you feel he's been effective in changing the Democratic Party message?
Absolutely. I don't think there would be such a movement on the there's an energy and an atmosphere within the Democratic Party right now. Not within the DNC and the delegates and all of them, but within the people who are registered Democrats who are waking up and going, this is important. I need to pay attention to this. I think they've gotten really complacent because for the past 8 years it's been a Democratic president. And to see that kind of revitalization coming in from what Bernie's doing, I think is very important both for this election right now and for future elections down the line. As far as him going down to the wire, I completely agree. He should not drop out. Bernie Sanders is only 328 delegates behind Hillary Clinton. That is without superdelegates. If he wins by a landslide in California, if he takes a couple of other states along the way, he can go down to a tied convention. And that's where the problem of politics comes in, because will he win at the convention in July? No. They're all for Hillary Clinton. She is their front runner. They are going to push her. They're going to be more interested in what the party, what is best for the party, not what is the best for the people. Even if there were signatures from millions of independents, there was something like 3 million independents that couldn't vote in the New York primary. This could be a very poor statistic, but I think it was like something like 82% of them, when they were polled, were like, yeah, we were going to vote for Bernie.
Right.
You know? So if they got together, you know,
but they need to, but they also
they need to communicate that to the DNC coming up. If they get to a split decision going there, you get all these independents calling in saying, hey, you put Bernie in there, we're pushing him. And it kind of changes your perspective on things, but these are things that don't happen. People, you know, and I say this a lot, and it may seem a little cruel, but liberals are kind of defeatists at times. So if they get to the split convention and Bernie didn't do as well as they thought he was going to do, or like it's coming down to the wire and everybody, like CNN is going to say, oh, well, Hillary's going to get the nod, they're going to give up. It's just, it's going to happen.
So I just did the math, and on the remaining states, there are 1,016 delegates at stake.
That's insane.
There are 1,016 delegates still at stake.
Right.
Now, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 open primaries, which benefit Bernie Sanders.
Right. Now, those are the ones that he'll probably succeed in for the most part.
So when we're talking about Indiana on May 3rd, we've got 83 delegates at stake. That's open. Puerto Rico, there are 60 delegates at stake. That's open. 18 delegates in North Dakota, so it's kind of irrelevant, and the same with Montana, which is open. California, like Rhode Island, which Bernie just won by double digits, is a semi-closed primary with 475 delegates at stake.
Right. Now, these people still have time to register to vote prior to. So, I mean, if independents really want to get behind Bernie Sanders, if they really want to push the limits of the system and say, we, the people, have the power to make a difference, then they should be lining up at these offices right now saying, I need to change my affiliation. What do I need to do to be able to vote in this primary so I can vote for my candidate?
Right. Absolutely.
But is that going to happen? Realistically, he should win Puerto Rico by a landslide.
What I think has hurt Bernie Sanders the most is the early primaries. I don't think took even with all the steam he had generated prior to Iowa. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the voter base was taking him seriously until he started winning. And then I think once he got some wins under his belt, outside of New Hampshire, I think then people said, this guy's got a shot.
Yeah, he's won what, 9 of the last 11 primaries?
So
he lost New York. Except for
he lost 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
He'd won something like 8 out of 9. If you get the people in California, the people in Montana and New Jersey and North Dakota, they've had time. Hey, I need to go register.
Right.
They've had the time.
There's no excuse.
But the early voters don't. Bernie could win California in a landslide.
He could.
There is a chance. Out on the West Coast, he won several contests by 60 points. I mean, he won 80-20. California is very diverse. I don't know if he'll win 80-20 there. He needs some key victories. It is closer than it should be. There are currently 559 pledge delegates awarded total. 520 are with the Clinton campaign.
Right.
520. So if we take the 559 and cut it in half, if we take 279 from Hillary, she's got 1365. If we add 279, so we're splitting superdelegates just in half, 50-50. If we add 279 to Bernie Sanders, he's got over 1,500 delegates in his pocket.
Which is now within a 200-point race.
So if we said the superdelegates split 50-50, Bernie Sanders would have a 200-delegate lead, assuming California.
Right.
So maybe the best way of reform in the Democratic Party would be to say the first candidate to
2238, 23 something.
2382.
There it is.
The first candidate to 2382 wins. However, superdelegates will not come into effect at all unless neither candidate hits that number.
Exactly. And that should be it. I personally believe superdelegates shouldn't exist at all. I don't think they're an accurate representation of the people. I don't think there's a purpose for them. You can win the race based off of, the states that are there. You can hit that target number. If you don't and you go to a split decision and you go to the DNC, then yes, it makes sense to have the superdelegates, but then that goes back to the superdelegates should be supporting the decision of their state, not who's going to pay them more.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a problem. And also, look at the math we just did, right?
Actually, my math was off.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm sorry. But Bernie would be much... I mean, she's got a 400 delegate lead in superdelegates.
With superdelegates.
So he actually wouldn't have a lead, but it'd be a minuscule margin.
Absolutely. Now, we just did this math, and we just projected out, what happens if he wins this states? What happens if the superdelegates are split? The problem with the mainstream media, for me at least, is that you don't hear these conversations taking place. You hear, well, Hillary Clinton's more than likely going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. She's in this lead, and even if Bernie wins this and this, he can only come up this much in a gap because they factor in their superdelegates, and they make them sound like the end-all, be-all. And honestly, in my opinion, they push Hillary Clinton. They do. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a fact, but if you look at it, it's really what they do. It is feasible that Bernie Sanders could win the nomination before the DNC even hits.
Okay, so even though there are 1,000 delegates at stake, Bernie Sanders would literally have to win every single one of those.
Right.
To reach the 2382.
Mm-hmm. But he could close this gap. He could go into the DNC with a 50-50 split of just state delegates, no superdelegates at all.
Right.
Why are we not hearing that from MSNBC, from CNN?
I think it needs to happen. Okay,
But the evidence there shows itself. When he started winning, when he won 6 primaries in a row, you should have been hearing, this is a probability. We should crunch these numbers. We should inform the American people of the probability, not just, well, Hillary Clinton can win by this much or she can win by this much, but Bernie can never win. It's mathematically impossible. CNN was saying it less than a week ago, that it's almost mathematically impossible for Bernie Sanders to win. But it's not.
Okay, well, Indiana votes on May 3rd, okay? So right now the polls have Clinton with a slight lead just outside the margin of error. Just outside. We're 49, 44, 47, 43, 46, 42. In Michigan, we saw Bernie overcome those those numbers. If Bernie Sanders goes into Indiana, which is an open primary, in Indiana, now we are talking Midwest, so
it gets less progressive.
It gets less progressive. What if Bernie goes in and wins 55-45 in Indiana?
That's huge.
In an open primary, I think if that happens, I think if you see a swing to where Bernie starts regaining some momentum, I think the media will backpedal a little bit. In the media can do that because they're on every single day, and they can backpedal and change their opinion as much as they want because they're the media and they're on 24 hours a day. And what else are they going to talk about? I don't think he's out. I think there's a chance he wins the nomination still, but he needs some decisive victories to do it.
Absolutely, and he needs his supporters. Specifically the millennials, the guys who go out there and they cheer for him and they go to the rallies and they support him and they talk about him all the time. They post the pictures on Facebook, they post the articles on BuzzFeed, but then they don't go to the voting booths. That needs to change. A lot of people complain, well, my vote doesn't matter, so why bother? You would be so surprised as to how much your vote matters if you actually went out there and voted.
Well, and that brings me to the last bullet point I've got here. Are Bernie supporters... Are they real? Are Bernie supporters, are they going to vote in the general election? If Bernie Sanders wins the nomination, are they going to go out and vote for him? Are they going to register for a party? Are they going to show up at the polls? Are they going to follow the election? Are they going to watch the debates? Are they going to show up?
If Bernie Sanders, if anything, I'm 26. I grew up in the age of technology and the internet took the world by storm and memes took the world by storm. I've learned one absolute truth. If you spread it enough on the internet, no matter what it is, you will hype up everybody. Not to bring up bullshit celebrity stuff, but this whole Beyonce, Lemonade, Jay-Z affair thing has garnered so much attention from just the internet. Before the news outlets were even reporting on it, there were millions of people bombarding Rachel Ray and insulting her even though it was the wrong woman that's off tangent, though. My point is, if Bernie gets the nod for the general election, he decimates whoever his opponent is in a landslide, in an absolute landslide. I don't know if they watch the debates. I don't know if they pay attention the night of the voting, but I know that everybody gets out there and everybody votes. He crushes with the independents. He crushes with the Democrats.
But Trump also benefits from independents.
He does, but if it comes down, I would trust the independent vote with Bernie more than I would with Hillary.
I think either candidate beats Trump easily.
I don't know. Looking at polls that we have available to us, Bernie has an obvious advantage over Trump, Hillary not so much. In some polls she's up, in some polls she's down. Bernie across the board is, I will crush anybody who tries to run for president against me. Now, is that just hype from the media? Maybe. But, I mean, who knows? We wouldn't know unless he gets the general election nod.
As of polling done Monday, April 25th, in multiple polls, Sanders beats Cruz by double digits. Sanders beats Trump by double digits. Clinton beats Trump high single to double digits. So Sanders has a larger advantage over both candidates.
Right.
Clinton actually beats... USA Today has her at plus 11 over Trump. GWU Battleground has her only plus 3 over Trump, plus 7 over Cruz. Sanders is safe in every situation except against John Kasich, where he is only a 1-point favorite.
Which is interesting, isn't it? It's like the people are saying, you know what, if Kasich had won more than one primary at the start of this thing, maybe we would have supported him. Well, it's a weird statistic that Kasich is the one that people are like, I don't know if Bernie could stand up against that.
Well, and not to jump off of the what we're talking about here in the Bernie supporters, John Kasich came in second in 4 out of 5 contests on Tuesday.
Very quietly. You didn't hear about it a lot.
Very quietly. And the one contest he came in third in, he trailed Cruz by, I think, less than 2 points.
Yes, something like that.
So why is this a Ted Cruz-Donald Trump battle? Why is Kasich suddenly... If Kasich is more popular, you could argue that Kasich has become more popular than Cruz in the voters' eyes. Why do we care that Ted Cruz just had Carly Fiorina become his VP nominee?
This is where I get a little conspiracy theorist on you, because the media doesn't want Kasich. The media pushes Clinton, they push Trump, and they push Cruz. They don't even really push Sanders. I mean, MSNBC just had a town hall with Bernie Sanders, and they went to a breaking news story over the most bullshit thing I'd ever seen in my life. I wish I could remember what it was off the top of my head, but I remember I was watching the town hall, and it went to breaking news, and I was like, this is breaking news? You're taking time away from Bernie's town hall for this? It might as well have been like, duck crosses street, forgets ducklings, goes back and gets them. This story is still developing. Will he make it across the street? Like, that's essentially what it was. So, I mean, the media pushes Cruz and Trump on the Republican side so far down their throats that, like, even though Kasich did well, so to speak, in these last 5 contests, he's not going to get the recognition because the media doesn't care. He's already mathematically voted out of the nomination, so why even bother talking about him?
So do you think that in 2008, huge voter turnout for Barack Obama, do you see the same thing with Bernie if he gets the nomination?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
So you think the millennials go out and they vote?
I think yes.
And do you think the older generation goes out and they support him because he's a better choice than Trump?
Yeah, I think the older generation that's just Democratic Republican. Republicans aren't going to vote for Bernie Sanders the way they would vote for Hillary Clinton over Trump, but you won't need that with Trump. We're talking about the millennials. This is arguably the first time they're able to vote in a general election, and Bernie Sanders is their man.
Well, the millennials came out big for... Well, the younger generation came out for Obama.
Technically, we're millennials, if you want to get technical. But I see millennials as people right now between like the 18 to 20-year-old range.
First-time voters.
Right. First-time voters are going to go out there,
election.
and they're going to slam the polls for Bernie. And that's when it matters. Are they going out there and doing it right now? No. Would they do it in a general election against Trump? Absolutely. You know why? The internet would tell them to.
So, we've got about a minute left. Any closing thoughts?
Let's make America great again. The wall just got 10 feet higher.
The wall can theoretically get as high as it wants because there's not enough money to build a fucking wall.
No, actual closing thoughts? Sure. No matter what you believe, no matter what we talked about tonight that you agreed or disagreed with, the bottom line is this. If you're in a state where you haven't voted yet, if you're an independent and you know you have a closed primary and you know what you need to do to get out there and be able to vote and you want to vote for somebody, do it. Stop being lazy. When the general election comes, stop being lazy. Get out there and vote. Support your party. If you don't have a party, support the person you think could do their best at making America great.
It is your civic responsibility to go out and vote, write in a candidate, whatever you want to do, just vote. That's all we've got from our nameless podcast, Dry Run. We will see you next time on a different subject. Have a fantastic day.
Bye.